I was scrolling through YouTube the other day and came across this video where the host was practically yelling from the rooftops, "Quit your job today and start a business." The energy was so over the top, it almost made entrepreneurship look like some magical escape hatch. Now, don't get me wrong, I do believe business has way more potential than any job ever will. But the way it was presented, you'd think it's all sunshine and rainbows. And here's what I kept thinking. After watching something like that, a lot of people are going to feel this rush, like, that's it, I'm ready to jump in right now. But let me ask you this. Have you ever caught yourself staring at your computer screen at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday, thinking, one day, I'm going to quit this job and start my own business? That dream hits differently now, doesn't it? When you're watching colleagues get laid off, when AI is threatening entire industries, when your rent keeps climbing, but your salary stays frozen. The 9-to-5 doesn't feel like security anymore. It feels like a ticking time bomb. So your mind starts wandering. What if I just took the leap? But here's the part most people never hear. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, about 49% of new businesses fail within the first 5 years, and more than 65% fail within 10. And it's rarely because the idea was bad. It's usually because the founder wasn't ready, financially, mentally, or skill-wise. And here's the part that'll really keep you up at night. Most people don't fail because their idea sucked. They fail because they confuse desperation with preparation. That's exactly why I built this 3-part series. I'm going to give you clear, expert-crafted parameters to measure yourself against, so you can decide honestly, is being your own boss going to be your biggest pitfall or the foundation of your wealth? So if you don't want to miss the next 2 parts, and trust me, they'll be even more eye-opening, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications right now. That way, you won't just dream about starting a business, you'll actually know if it's the right move for you. So let's start with the foundation, money. Because no matter how passionate you are, if your finances aren't in order, your business won't survive its first storm. Here are 7 financial checkpoints to measure yourself against. 1. Cash flow awareness. Do you know you're in and out? Here's a stat that'll shock you. 82% of businesses fail because of cash flow problems. Not because they couldn't sell, not because the idea was bad, cash flow. I've personally seen companies making millions in revenue collapse overnight because they couldn't answer one simple question. How much actual cash do I have to spend today? Now think about it. In a job, your paycheck shows up like clockwork. Steady, predictable. But when you switch to business, income becomes a roller coaster. Clients pay late, expenses pop up out of nowhere, and suddenly you're juggling bills without a safety net. Here's the big reality check. Even if your sales are booming, poor cash flow can sink you fast. Let me give you an example. You might have $5,000 sitting in your account today, but if $4,500 worth of bills hit next week and your next payment doesn't arrive until the following Friday, you're already in a cash flow crisis. Now multiply that by 10 when you're running a business. Customers take 30, sometimes 60 days to pay, but your expenses, they hit immediately. So let me ask you this. Think about last month. Did you end the month with more money than you started with? Have you ever had to wait for payday just to cover a bill? Do you know exactly when your biggest expenses hit? And most importantly, if your paycheck stopped tomorrow, how many days could you survive before hitting 0? If you can't answer these confidently, here's the brutal truth. You're not managing cash flow. You're just hoping nothing breaks. And sure, that might work when you've got a predictable salary. But in business, where income is lumpy, irregular, and sometimes delayed, that's financial suicide. Here's the thing most people don't realize. You could land a $50,000 contract in January, but if the client doesn't pay until March, meanwhile, you're still paying your team, your rent, your suppliers every month. You're technically profitable on paper, while your bank account is literally hitting 0. I've seen it happen over and over. Entrepreneurs celebrating big sales on Instagram while secretly scrambling just to cover payroll. Why? Because they never learned the difference between money earned and money received. So here's your homework. For the next 30 days, track every single dollar that goes in and out. Not just the amounts, track the timing. When does money actually land in your account? When do your bills actually clear? Because here's the truth. If you can't manage your own personal cash flow when it's just you and a paycheck, how are you going to manage it when your income swings 500% from month to month and other people's livelihoods depend on you. Master cash flow awareness now or become another statistic later. The choice is yours. 2. The runway. Can you survive without a paycheck? Here's the reality check. Your business is not going to pay you on day one. For most people, it won't pay them for months. That's where your runway comes in. Your runway is simply this. How long can you survive without a steady paycheck? Think of it like fuel in an airplane. If you don't have enough runway, you're going to crash before you ever get off the ground. And here's the part most people never plan for. When you start a business, your personal income usually goes down before it goes up. Because in the beginning, every dollar is being reinvested. Unexpected costs pop up. You're grinding just to get traction. If you don't have at least 6 to 12 months of living expenses saved, you're not making decisions out of strategy, you're making them out of desperation. And desperation kills businesses. Here's a stat that might shock you. According to CB Insights, 38% of startups fail because they run out of cash. Not because the idea was bad, but because the founders didn't give themselves enough runway to survive the early grind. And here's another trap people fall into. When they don't have a runway, they try to start a business on the side while keeping their job. On paper, it sounds safe. In reality, you end up split in two. You can't give your job 100% focus. You can't give your business 100% focus. The result? Your performance at work slips, your boss notices, and your business limps along until it dies. In the end, you risk losing both. So ask yourself this, honestly, if your paycheck stopped tomorrow, how many months could you still pay rent, cover your bills, and feed yourself without swiping a credit card or borrowing money? If that number is less than 6, you're not ready to quit yet. Build your runway first, because it's not just savings, it's buying yourself time, freedom, and the mental clarity to build your business the right way. 3. Access to capital. Do you have a backup source? Here's the harsh truth about business capital that nobody ever tells you in those motivational videos. Your savings account is just your starting fuel, not your entire journey. Most businesses don't fail because the idea was bad. They fail because they run out of money at the worst possible moment. Let me show you what this looks like in reality. Jake started a digital marketing agency with $15,000 in savings. By month 3, he landed a huge client worth $50,000 a year. Sounds amazing, right? Wrong. That client required Jake to hire 2 contractors up front, invest in premium software, and cover expenses for 60 days before he saw the first payment. His $15,000 was gone. The client's payment was delayed to 90 days, and Jake had no backup plan. Within 6 months, he was out of business. That's why you need multiple sources of capital, not just savings. So here's your honest self-check. First, if you needed $10,000 tomorrow for a business opportunity, could you access it without destroying your personal finances? I'm talking business credit lines, not maxing out personal credit cards. Second, do you have relationships with potential investors or business partners who actually believe in your vision? Not friends who might lend you a few bucks, but people who understand business risk and can provide strategic capital. Third, if your business hits a rough patch, can you generate quick cash through side hustles or freelance work? Because your main business might take 6 months to bring consistent income, but you'll need survival cash in month 2. Here's a practical test for you. Map out 3 scenarios where you'd need emergency capital: a major opportunity, an unexpected expense, and income drought. Now, for each scenario, list 2 specific sources of money you could tap within 48 hours. If you're drawing blanks or relying only on personal credit cards, you're undercapitalized. Remember this: businesses don't fail because they're unprofitable. They fail because they run out of cash before profitability kicks in. Capital flexibility isn't optional, it's your business survival kit. 4. Startup costs. Have you counted every dollar? Most people think starting a business is cheap, especially today where you can set up a website in minutes or launch an online store for a few bucks. But here's the truth: the real costs sneak up on you, and they add up fast. It's not just the obvious stuff like a laptop or a website. Have you thought about legal fees, business licenses, insurance, software subscriptions, marketing campaigns, or even the cost of your first inventory? According to the U.S. Small Business Administration, the average micro business still needs around $3,000 just to get off the ground. And if you're stepping into a brick-and-mortar business or anything product-based, those costs can jump into the tens of thousands. Now here's the dangerous part. Most people dream about entrepreneurship from a distance. They see freedom, the flexibility, the potential wealth, but they don't see what's under the hood. Their entire calculation? It lives in their head. No spreadsheets, no hard numbers, no reality check. And that gap between imagination and preparation is exactly where businesses bleed out. Think of startup costs like an iceberg. From the surface, you only see the shiny tip, the exciting stuff, your brand design, your launch, your first product. But underneath, that's what really sinks most businesses. Recurring software subscriptions, payment processing fees that quietly eat into every sale, rising ad costs, and surprise expenses that always show up when you least expect them. If you only budget for the glamorous stuff on top, the weight of what's underneath will eventually pull you under. So before you quit your job, make a brutally honest checklist. Write down every single expense, from website hosting to accounting software to marketing to backup emergency costs. And then add at least 20% on top, because something unexpected always comes up. If you can't clearly map out and afford your startup costs, you're not ready yet. Because underestimating the price of entry doesn't just kill your business, it kills your confidence, right when you need it most. 5. Debt and lifestyle check. Are you carrying dead weight? Before you leave your job to start a business, you need to take a brutally honest look at your debt and your lifestyle. This step is non-negotiable. Here's the mistake a lot of would-be entrepreneurs make. They underestimate how much personal financial baggage can suffocate even the most promising new venture. And this isn't about vague advice like, just live lean. It's about real, measurable impact on your survival odds in business. So let's get practical. How do you know if this is holding you back? Step 1. List out all your debts. Write down the balances, the interest rates, and the minimum payments. Now, calculate your total monthly debt outflow. If that number is more than 20% of your take-home pay, that's a red flag. Because once you start a business, your income could easily drop in half at the beginning. Step 2. Audit your lifestyle. Pull your last 3 months of bank statements and sort every expense into 2 categories: essentials and non-essentials. What's your burn rate? Add up your fixed costs, rent, utilities, insurance. Then add your variables, things like dining out, shopping, subscriptions. Now, ask yourself, could you cut 30% without being miserable? For example, swapping just a couple of restaurant meals for home cooking can free up $100, maybe $200 a month. And here's a practical test. For the next 3 months, try living on 60% of your current income. Use the other 40% to pay down debt or build savings. If you can't do that, or if it feels impossible, then entrepreneurship will break you. Because the freedom to build wealth only comes after you've proven you can live below your means. Your business needs oxygen to grow, but high debt payments and an inflated lifestyle? That's carbon monoxide, and it will slowly suffocate your entrepreneurial dreams. 6. The pay yourself last reality. Can you live frugally? This is where entrepreneurial dreams meet brutal reality. For the first 12 to 18 months, you're not the CEO getting paid. You're the business's biggest creditor, lending it your time, your money, and your energy with no guarantee of return. Let me paint you the real picture. Jennifer left her $70,000 marketing job to start her own consulting firm. Month 1, 0 revenue. But she still spent $2,400 on software, a website, and legal setup. Month 2, $1,500 in revenue, but $3,200 in expenses, including project costs for her first client. Month 3, $4,000 in revenue. But here's the catch. She had to choose, pay herself or invest in a marketing campaign that landed her next 3 clients. She chose the business. And that pattern continued for 14 months before she could finally pay herself consistently. So the real question isn't, can you survive without income? It's, can you survive mentally while watching money flow out instead of in? Can you work 60-hour weeks while your friends with steady jobs are buying new cars and taking vacations? Can you explain to your family why there's no money for extras while you're supposedly running a successful business? Here's a psychological readiness test. Track how you feel during your job's longest stretch between paychecks, usually a month. Do you get anxious checking your bank balance? Do you feel resentful when bills pile up? Now imagine that feeling not for 1 month, but for 8 months straight, and while working twice as hard. Here's the practical assessment. Calculate your absolute minimum survival needs, just food, shelter, and basic transportation. Now ask, can your spouse or your savings cover that for 18 months without creating stress, fights, or financial panic? And if you're single, do you have a place you could live rent-free if it came to that? Because here's the brutal truth. If going 6 months without personal income would cause relationship conflict, force you into bad debt, or make you desperate enough to grab any paying gig, you'll sabotage your business before it ever has the chance to succeed. Business ownership demands emotional resilience and the ability to delay gratification far longer than most people ever imagine. 7. Investment versus spending. The revenue reality filter. Here's the mistake that kills more businesses than bad products or poor marketing. It's entrepreneurs who can't tell the difference between spending money and investing money. They sound similar, but one builds wealth and the other destroys it. Let me show you how this plays out in real life. Tom started a fitness coaching business. By month 2, he had $8,000 to spend. Option A, a sleek downtown office space for $3,500 a month. Looked impressive to clients. Option B, a simple home office setup for $500 and $7,500 in Facebook ads targeting his ideal customers. Tom chose the fancy office because it felt more professional. 6 months later, he had a beautiful office, no clients, and was broke. Meanwhile, his competitor Sarah chose option B. She ran those ads, generated 150 leads, and closed 30 clients, working right out of her home office. The difference? Tom spent money to feel like a business owner. Sarah invested money to become one. Here's the filter you need to apply. Every single expense in your business has to pass the revenue generation test. Ask yourself, will this directly bring in customers? Will it help me serve customers better? Will it help me deliver my product faster? If the answer isn't a clear yes, it's not an investment, it's spending. Let's get specific. A $500 website template that converts visitors into customers? That's an investment. A $5,000 custom website that looks amazing but confuses people? That's spending. A $200 monthly CRM that tracks your sales pipeline? Investment. A $2,000 office space when you work alone? Spending. Here's your practical test. Look at your last 5 business purchases. For each one, ask, did this expense bring in more money than it cost within 90 days? If you can't draw a direct line, you're not investing, you're just spending. And here's the hard truth. Successful entrepreneurs, they're obsessed with ROI, return on investment. They'll buy ugly furniture, but premium advertising. They'll drive old cars, but invest in top-tier software. They know the difference between looking successful and being successful. So if you find yourself justifying expenses because they make you feel professional or look established, you're not ready for business ownership. You're ready for expensive hobbies.
All right, that was the financial reality check. If you honestly passed all 7 of those checkpoints, you are already miles ahead of the pack. But money is just the fuel. In the next video, we're building the engine. We're talking about the skills, the discipline, and the one non-negotiable trait that determines whether you sink or swim in your first year. Trust me, it's not what you think. Look, I know this was a heavy dose of reality. My goal isn't to crush your dream. It's to bulletproof it. Because if you can't be honest with yourself about the money, you've already lost. So if you're serious about not becoming another statistic, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell right now. You don't want to miss this. Before you go, drop a comment below and tell me, which one of these 7 financial checkpoints was your biggest wake-up call? Don't just dream of being the boss. Prepare to be one. I'll see you in the next video.